In a quaint little town surrounded by lush green hills and winding dirt roads, there lived a spirited 16-year-old girl named Clara. Her home was modest, a small wooden house with chipped paint and creaky floorboards, but it brimmed with warmth and love thanks to her grandfather, Henry. Since she was just 5 years old, Henry had been her rock, raising her after a tragic car accident claimed the lives of her parents. He wasn't just a caregiver, he was her best friend, teacher, and biggest cheerleader. Henry was a man of simple pleasures. He loved gardening, reading old books, and strumming his battered guitar late into the evening. It was through him that Clara discovered her passion for music. On lazy summer afternoons, they would sit on the porch together, the sound of crickets filling the air as Henry taught her chords on his guitar. "Music speaks when words fail," he'd often say, his voice soft but full of wisdom. Those lessons became more than just about learning notes. They were moments of connection that shaped Clara's life. But their peaceful existence came crashing down one cold winter morning when Henry collapsed while tending to his beloved roses. Rushed to the hospital, doctors diagnosed him with a severe heart condition that required immediate surgery. The news hit Clara like a ton of bricks. While relieved to know there was a solution, the cost of the procedure left her reeling, thousands of dollars, money they simply didn't have. Henry tried to reassure her, patting her hand weakly from his hospital bed. "Don't you worry, sweetheart. We'll figure something out," he said, though his weary eyes betrayed his concern. But Clara knew better. She had seen the bills piling up over the years. Their savings had dwindled long ago. Now, with Henry unable to work due to his declining health, the burden fell entirely on her young shoulders. Determined not to lose the only family she had left, Clara took matters into her own hands. She picked up extra shifts at the diner where she worked part-time serving coffee and wiping tables until her feet ached. Still, no matter how many hours she put in, the numbers never added up. One night, as she sat alone in her room staring at the stack of unpaid medical invoices, an idea sparked in her mind. What if she could use her music, the very thing her grandfather had taught her, to make a difference? The next day, armed with her guitar and a newfound sense of purpose, Clara ventured into the bustling streets of a nearby city. Standing nervously, on a busy sidewalk, she began to sing. At first, her voice trembled, barely audible over the hum of passing cars and chatter of pedestrians. But as she poured her heart into each note, something magical happened. People slowed down to listen, captivated by the sincerity in her tone. Strangers dropped coins and crumpled bills into her open guitar case, offering smiles or words of encouragement as they passed. Clara sang song after song, her repertoire ranging from classic ballads to heartfelt originals. One tune in particular stood out, a piece she had written herself called "For You, Grandpa." Its lyrics spoke of gratitude, love, and the unbreakable bond between her and Henry. As she sang, tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't stop. This wasn't just a performance, it was a plea for help, a testament to the lengths she was willing to go to save the man who meant everything to her. Word of the teenage girl with the golden voice quickly spread throughout the community. Local newspapers featured her story, highlighting her unwavering dedication to her grandfather. Social media posts shared clips of her singing, garnering thousands of views and shares. Despite the growing attention, however, Clara remained humble. For her, this wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about survival, about doing whatever it took to ensure Henry got the care he desperately needed. Yet, even with the increased visibility, the money trickled in slowly. Medical expenses loomed large, casting a shadow over Clara's efforts. There were days when doubt crept in, whispering cruel thoughts in her ear. Was she strong enough to keep going? Could she really pull this off? But then she'd think of Henry, his gentle smile, his patient guidance, his unconditional love, and find the strength to push forward. Every coin that clinked into her guitar case felt like a tiny victory, a reminder that hope still existed. As weeks turned into months, Clara continued her street performances, rain or shine. Passers-by admired her resilience, some stopping to chat and share their own stories of hardship and triumph. Through these interactions, Clara realized she wasn't alone in her struggles. Countless others faced similar battles, fighting silently, against overwhelming odds. This realization fueled her determination even further. If her music could inspire just one person to keep going, to believe in the power of perseverance, then all her hard work would be worth it. Little did Clara know, her journey was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would change not only her life but also the lives of those around her. Unbeknownst to her, someone special was watching, moved by her courage and compassion. Someone who would soon step in to rewrite the ending of her story in ways she could never have imagined. Clara's weekends became a whirlwind of activity as she continued her street performances in nearby cities. Each morning, she would wake up before sunrise, pack her guitar carefully into its weathered case, and catch the early bus to bustling, downtown areas. Her routine was simple yet exhausting. Find a spot with decent foot traffic, set up her makeshift stage, a worn-out blanket and a cardboard sign that read, "Singing to Save My Grandpa," and begin playing. The streets were alive with energy, filled with the sounds of honking cars, chattering crowds, and distant sirens, but Clara's voice always managed to cut through the noise. Her performances weren't polished or rehearsed like those of professional musicians. Instead, they carried an authenticity that resonated deeply with listeners. She sang from the heart, her emotions raw and unfiltered. Some days, she performed upbeat songs to lift spirits. Other days, she chose soulful ballads that brought tears to people's eyes. But no matter what she sang, one song stood out above the rest. "For You, Grandpa." Written during a sleepless night when worry for Henry overwhelmed her, the lyrics painted a vivid picture of their bond. Lines like, "Your hands taught me chords, your heart taught me love," struck a chord with everyone who heard them. Crowds began to gather around her more frequently now, drawn not just by her voice but also by her story. Strangers lingered longer than usual, some snapping photos or recording videos on their phones. A few even approached her after her sets asking if they could share her music online. Clara hesitated at first. She didn't want attention for herself, but eventually agreed, realizing it might help spread awareness about her cause. Within days, clips of her singing went viral on social media platforms. Comments poured in from all over the world, praising her talent and determination. People were moved not only by her musical ability, but also by the depth of her love for her grandfather. Despite the growing support, raising enough money remained a daunting challenge. Though donations increased slightly, they barely made a dent in the astronomical medical bills looming over her head. Clara often found herself staring at the numbers late at night, wondering how much longer she could keep going. Sometimes, frustration bubbled over. After particularly tough days, she'd sit alone on park benches or empty bus stops, tears streaming down her face as she questioned whether her efforts were futile. Yet, every time doubt crept in, memories of Henry pushed her forward. She remembered his laughter, his patience, and the countless sacrifices he had made for her. How could she give up when he had given her so much? One rainy Saturday afternoon, Clara arrived at her usual spot in downtown Los Angeles, umbrella in hand and guitar slung across her back. The drizzle kept most people indoors, leaving the streets eerily quiet. Still, she set up her blanket and started to play, hoping someone might stop to listen. As she sang, a small crowd began to form, mostly tourists seeking shelter from the rain. Among them was a man dressed casually in jeans and a leather jacket. He stood quietly at the edge of the group, his hands tucked into his pockets as he listened intently. At first glance, he looked like any other passerby, but something about him seemed different. His presence felt calm yet commanding, drawing subtle glances from others. When Clara finished her set, the man stepped forward and dropped a generous amount of cash into her guitar case. Before she could thank him, he smiled softly and said, "That was beautiful. Keep going." His words, though brief, carried a weight that stayed with her long after he walked away. Later that evening, while scrolling through social media posts tagged with her name, Clara stumbled upon a comment thread identifying the mysterious stranger as none other than Keanu Reeves. Known for his humility and kindness, Keanu had been spotted listening to her performance earlier that day. Fans speculated about why he was there and whether he planned to do anything to help. Clara couldn't believe it. Had the Hollywood star really taken the time to listen to her sing? The encounter left Clara both thrilled and conflicted. On one hand, having someone like Keanu acknowledge her efforts felt surreal and validating. On the other hand, she worried about relying too heavily on external validation. This journey wasn't about fame or celebrity endorsements. It was about saving Henry. Still, the thought of Keanu being involved, even indirectly, gave her a renewed sense of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this twist of fate could lead to something bigger. Over the next few days, Clara noticed an uptick in donations. Messages flooded her inbox from fans of Keanu, many attaching screenshots of their contributions alongside notes of encouragement. It was clear that his involvement, however small, had sparked a ripple effect. People who hadn't paid attention before were now eager to help. Local news outlets picked up the story again, this time highlighting Keanu's appearance at Clara's performance. Reporters reached out for interviews, but Clara politely declined, wanting to focus on her mission rather than bask in the spotlight. Meanwhile, Henry remained oblivious to the growing buzz surrounding Clara's efforts. Back home, he spent most of his days resting, occasionally venturing outside to tend to his garden despite Clara's protests. When she visited him after her performances, she made sure to hide her exhaustion behind a bright smile. "How's the fundraising coming along?" he'd ask gently, already knowing the answer. Clara always reassured him, saying things were progressing steadily. She didn't want to burden him with the truth, that despite her best efforts, they were still far from reaching their goal. As weeks passed, Clara continued performing, pouring every ounce of energy into her music. Her voice grew stronger, her confidence bolstered by the outpouring of support from strangers turned friends. Yet, beneath the surface, doubts lingered. Would she ever raise enough? What if she failed? These questions haunted her, especially on lonely nights when the city lights blurred through her window and the weight of responsibility pressed down on her chest. Little did she know, help was closer than she imagined. Unbeknownst to Clara, Keanu had been quietly following her progress, touched by her resilience and the purity of her intentions. For him, this wasn't just another charitable act. It was personal. Having faced his own share of loss and hardship, he understood the pain of watching a loved one suffer. And so, inspired by Clara's courage, he decided to take action in a way that would change everything. For Clara, for Henry, and for countless others touched by their story. The rainy afternoon in downtown Los Angeles had left a lasting impression on Clara, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something unusual was about to happen. The mysterious man who had listened so intently to her performance, and who turned out to be Keanu Reeves, had sparked curiosity not just among her growing audience but within herself as well. She replayed their brief interaction in her mind over and over, his calm demeanor, the way he seemed genuinely moved by her music, and those simple yet profound words. That was beautiful. Keep going. It wasn't just encouragement. It felt like a promise. A few days later, life continued as usual for Clara. She woke up early, grabbed her guitar, and headed to another busy street corner to perform. But this time, there was an undeniable shift in the air. More people stopped to listen than ever before, many of them mentioning Keanu's name. Some even shared stories of how they admired him not just as an actor, but as a person known for his humility and kindness. Clara smiled politely, grateful for the attention, but deep down, she wondered if anything would truly come of it. Fame didn't pay medical bills after all. Then, one evening, as she returned home exhausted from another long day of performing, her phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from an unknown sender. Curious, she opened it, her heart skipping, a beat as she read the first line. "Dear Clara, I've been following your story." The message went on to explain that an anonymous donor wanted to contribute significantly toward Henry's surgery costs. At first, Clara thought it was a prank or some kind of scam. Who would randomly offer such a large sum without asking for anything in return? but the email included contact information for a verified foundation, along with instructions on how to proceed. Clara hesitated, unsure what to do next. She called the number provided, half expecting no one to answer. To her surprise, a warm voice greeted her on the other end. A representative from the foundation confirmed that everything was legitimate, the funds were real, and they were ready to transfer the money immediately. Overwhelmed with emotion, Clara struggled to find the right words. "Thank you," she managed to say, her voice trembling. "But why? Why would someone do this?" The representative paused for a moment before responding. "Sometimes people see potential in others and want to help bring light to their struggles. You've inspired a lot of people, Clara. Just know that your hard work hasn't gone unnoticed." As the call ended, Clara sat on the edge of her bed, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't believe it. After months of uncertainty, sleepless nights, and relentless effort, the financial burden crushing her family was finally being lifted. Relief washed over her, but it was mixed with a sense of disbelief. Who could have done this, and why would they choose her? It wasn't until later that week, during a visit to the hospital where Henry was undergoing preliminary tests, that Clara learned the truth. While waiting in the lobby, she struck up a conversation with a nurse who worked closely with the hospital's billing department. The nurse mentioned hearing whispers about Clara's case, that a very generous individual had stepped in to cover not only the surgery costs, but also post-operative care expenses. When Clara pressed for details, the nurse revealed that the donor had requested complete anonymity, leaving only a single clue behind: his initials, KR. Clara froze. Her mind raced back to that rainy afternoon when Keanu stood quietly at the edge of the crowd listening to her sing. Could it really be him? The pieces fit perfectly. He had shown interest in her story, offered quiet encouragement, and now, seemingly out of nowhere, miraculous help arrived. Overcome with gratitude, Clara tried reaching out to Keanu through social media, hoping to express her thanks. But true to his nature, he remained elusive, neither confirming nor denying his involvement. Determined to show her appreciation somehow, Clara decided to write a heartfelt letter. In it, she poured out her emotions, thanking him not just for the financial assistance but for restoring her faith in humanity during one of the darkest periods of her life. She mailed the letter to his management team, knowing full well that it might never reach him. Still, writing it gave her a sense of closure, a chance to articulate the depth of her gratitude. Meanwhile, preparations for Henry's surgery moved forward swiftly. With the financial barrier removed, doctors scheduled the procedure sooner than expected. For the first time in months, Clara allowed herself to breathe a little easier. She spent her days helping Henry prepare, ensuring he followed pre-surgery guidelines and keeping his spirits high. Though he still didn't know the full extent of what had happened, Henry sensed a change in Clara's demeanor. Gone was the constant worry etched across her face. Instead, she radiated hope and determination. One evening, as they sat together on the porch watching the sunset, Henry turned to Clara and said, "You've done so much for me, sweetheart. Whatever happens, I'm proud of you." His words brought tears to her eyes, but she quickly brushed them away, smiling brightly. "We're going to get through this, Grandpa," she replied. Together. Behind the scenes, Keanu's act of generosity rippled far beyond Clara and Henry. News of the anonymous donation spread throughout the community, inspiring others to step up and support causes close to their hearts. Local businesses organized fundraisers, musicians held benefit concerts, and strangers reached out to Clara offering additional help. What started as one girl's fight to save her grandfather evolved into a movement fueled by compassion and unity. For Clara, the experience reinforced a powerful lesson. Kindness has a way of multiplying. Every coin dropped into her guitar case, every message of encouragement, and every act of goodwill, from strangers and celebrities alike, had played a role in getting her here. And while she may never fully understand why Keanu chose to intervene, she knew one thing for certain: His actions reminded her that even in life's toughest moments, there are good people willing to lend a hand. As Henry's surgery date approached, Clara found solace in knowing that their journey wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about connection. Through her music, her perseverance, and the unexpected kindness of others, she had touched lives in ways she never imagined. And though the road ahead would still require strength and resilience, Clara faced it with renewed optimism, ready to embrace whatever came next. Henry's surgery day arrived, and the weight of anticipation hung heavy in the air. Clara woke up before dawn, her stomach tied in knots as she prepared for what felt like the most important day of her life. She dressed quietly, careful not to wake her grandfather, who was still asleep in his room. The house was eerily silent, save for the faint ticking of the old clock on the wall. As she packed a small bag with essentials, snacks, books, and Henry's favorite blanket, she couldn't help but replay the events that had led them here. From those early days of street performances to the miraculous intervention of an anonymous donor, every step of this journey had been a testament to love, resilience, and the kindness of strangers. When they arrived at the hospital, Clara held Henry's hand tightly as they checked in. Nurses guided them through the pre-surgery process, explaining each step with practiced calmness. Despite their reassurances, Clara could see the nervousness in Henry's eyes. "It'll be okay, Grandpa," she whispered, squeezing his hand. "You're strong, and we've got this." Her words were meant to comfort him, but they also served as a reminder to herself to stay brave, no matter what happened next. As Henry was wheeled into the operating room, Clara took a seat in the waiting area, clutching the edges of her jacket. Time seemed to stretch endlessly, each second feeling like an eternity. To distract herself, she scrolled through messages on her phone. Her inbox was flooded with notes of support from friends, family, and even people she'd never met, fans of her music who had followed her story online. One message stood out. "Your courage inspires us all. We're rooting for you and your grandpa." It brought tears to her eyes, reminding her that she wasn't alone in this fight. Hours passed, and finally, a doctor emerged from the operating room. His expression was neutral, neither overly grim nor overtly cheerful, which left Clara holding her breath. "The surgery went well," he said, and those 4 words felt like a lifeline pulling her back from despair. Relief washed over her as the doctor explained that while recovery would take time, Henry was stable and responding positively. Overwhelmed with emotion, Clara thanked the medical team profusely, her voice cracking with gratitude. Afterward, she sat by Henry's bedside as he slept, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest. Machines beeped softly in the background, monitoring his vital signs, but Clara focused only on his face. He looked peaceful, almost serene, and for the first time in months, she allowed herself to relax. Leaning back in her chair, she closed her eyes and let the exhaustion catch up to her. Sleep came quickly, filled with dreams of brighter days ahead. Over the following weeks, Henry's recovery progressed steadily. Physical therapy sessions became part of their daily routine, and though he grew frustrated at times with the slow pace of improvement, Clara remained steadfast by his side. She encouraged him during exercises, celebrated small victories, and reminded him often of how far they'd already come. Their bond grew stronger than ever, forged not just by shared hardship but by the overwhelming support they'd received along the way. During one of these visits, Clara decided to share the truth about the anonymous donor. Up until now, she hadn't told Henry the full story, fearing it might overwhelm him. But as he regained strength, she knew it was time. Sitting beside him, she recounted everything: the viral videos, the donations, and finally the revelation that Keanu Reeves had likely played a pivotal role in saving his life. At first, Henry was speechless, his eyes wide with disbelief. Then, tears welled up and he pulled Clara into a tight embrace. "I don't know what I did to deserve a granddaughter like you," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "Or someone like him." Clara smiled, brushing away her own tears. "We didn't do anything special, Grandpa. We just cared." And sometimes that's enough to inspire others to care too. Word of Keanu's involvement spread further, drawing attention not only locally but nationally. Journalists reached out eager to cover the heartwarming story of a struggling teenager and the Hollywood star who stepped in to help. While Clara initially resisted interviews, wanting to keep the focus on Henry's recovery, she eventually agreed to speak publicly. Her goal wasn't self-promotion. Rather, she wanted to use her platform to highlight the importance of community and compassion. During one televised interview, she spoke candidly about her experience, urging viewers to look for opportunities to make a difference in someone else's life. "You don't have to be rich or famous to change the world," she said. "Sometimes all it takes is a little kindness." Keanu, meanwhile, remained characteristically humble. When reporters attempted to contact him for comment, he politely declined, redirecting attention back to Clara and her family. However, in private conversations with close friends, he expressed admiration for Clara's determination and the impact she had made. "She reminds me of why I believe in humanity," he reportedly said. "Even when things seem impossible, there's always hope." Inspired by the response to her story, Clara began organizing benefit concerts to raise funds for other families facing similar challenges. Local musicians eagerly joined the cause, donating their time and talents to perform alongside her. These events drew large crowds, not just because of Clara's growing fame, but because people were inspired by her mission. Each concert ended with a heartfelt speech from Clara, thanking attendees for their generosity and emphasizing the power of collective action. "If my music can bring people together, even for a moment, it's worth every note," she told the audience at one such event. One evening, after a particularly successful performance, Clara spotted a familiar figure standing near the back of the venue. It was Keanu, dressed casually as always, blending seamlessly into the crowd. Their eyes met briefly, and he gave her a small nod, acknowledging her success. Though he slipped away before she could approach him, his presence lingered, a quiet reminder of the ripple effect of his kindness. Later that night, Clara posted a photo of the concert on social media, tagging Keanu with a simple caption, "Thank you for believing in us." In the months that followed, Clara continued to advocate for causes close to her heart. She partnered with local charities, volunteered at community centers, and used her growing influence to amplify voices often overlooked. Her journey had transformed her not just into a musician or a public figure, but into someone deeply committed to making the world a better place. Through it all, she carried Henry's lessons with her, that music speaks when words fail, and that love has the power to heal even the deepest wounds. Though she never expected recognition for her efforts, accolades began pouring in. Award ceremonies honored her contributions to charity work, and schools invited her to speak about perseverance and empathy. Yet, none of these achievements compared to the joy she felt seeing Henry grow stronger each day. Together, they returned to their porch, where they resumed their tradition of playing guitar under the stars. Only now their songs carried new meaning, a celebration of survival, gratitude, and the unbreakable bonds of family. As Clara strummed the final chord of one such melody, she glanced at Henry, who was smiling contentedly. "You know," he said, his voice warm and steady, "we may not have much, but we've got something money can't buy." Clara nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. Love, resilience, and the kindness of strangers had carried them through the darkest of times and would continue to guide them forward. As the months rolled by, Clara's life began to transform in ways she could never have predicted. Her street performances had evolved into organized concerts, her name becoming synonymous with hope and resilience. People from all walks of life attended her shows, not just to hear her sing, but to witness the embodiment of determination and love that she represented. Clara, however, remained grounded. For her, these events weren't about fame or recognition. They were about creating a space where people could come together, share their stories, and find strength in one another. One evening, as Clara prepared for a charity concert at a local community center, she reflected on how far she'd come. The stage was modest, a small platform adorned with fairy lights and handmade banners, but it radiated warmth. Volunteers bustled around, setting up chairs and testing microphones, while musicians tuned their instruments nearby. Clara stood, off to the side, watching the flurry of activity with a mix of excitement and gratitude. She had once performed alone on cold city streets, unsure if anyone would stop to listen. Now, an entire team worked tirelessly to support her vision of spreading kindness through music. The concert began with a young choir singing uplifting hymns, followed by a series of local artists who poured their hearts into their performances. Each act was met with thunderous applause, but the energy reached its peak when Clara took the stage. Dressed in a simple dress and holding her trusty guitar, she greeted the audience with a warm smile. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she said, her voice steady despite the nerves fluttering in her chest. "This isn't just my story, it's ours. Every person in this room has faced challenges, big or small, and yet here we are, standing strong together." She launched into her set, starting with upbeat songs that got the crowd clapping and swaying along. But it was when she transitioned to "For You, Grandpa," that the atmosphere shifted. The room fell silent, every eye fixed on Clara as she sang the heartfelt lyrics she had written during her darkest days. Tears glistened in the eyes of many attendees, including Henry, who sat proudly in the front row. When the final note faded, the audience erupted into applause, rising to their feet in a standing ovation. Clara bowed her head, overwhelmed by the outpouring of emotion. After the performance, Clara mingled with attendees, thanking them for their support and sharing hugs with those who approached her. One woman, clutching a tissue to dab her tears, told Clara how her story had inspired her to reconnect with her estranged father. A teenage boy confessed that he had been battling depression, but found solace in Clara's message of perseverance. These moments reminded Clara why she continued doing what she did, not for accolades, but to remind others that they weren't alone. Later that night, as Clara packed up her guitar, she noticed a familiar figure lingering near the exit. It was Keanu Reeves, his presence unassuming yet unmistakable. He hadn't announced his attendance, nor did he seek attention. Instead, he stood quietly, observing the scene with a thoughtful expression. When their eyes met, Clara froze for a moment, unsure whether to approach him or let him be. Sensing her hesitation, Keanu walked over, offering a gentle smile. "You're incredible, Clara," he said softly. "What you've done, it's more than music. It's healing." Clara's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "I couldn't have done any of this without your help," she replied earnestly. "You saved my grandpa and us, I'll never forget that." Keanu shook his head, dismissing her gratitude with a wave of his hand. "No, Clara. You saved yourself. All I did was give you a little push. The rest was all you." His words carried weight, reminding Clara of the countless hours she had spent pouring her soul into her performances, refusing to give up even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Still, she knew his intervention had been pivotal, not just financially but emotionally. Knowing that someone like Keanu believed in her had given her the courage to keep going. Before leaving, Keanu surprised everyone by stepping onto the stage for a brief speech. The crowd erupted into cheers, clearly thrilled by his unexpected appearance. Taking the microphone, Keanu spoke candidly about Clara's journey and the lessons it held for everyone. "When I heard Clara sing that day on the street, I saw something extraordinary," he said, his voice resonating through the hall. "I saw a young woman fighting for the person she loved most, using her gift to make a difference. In a world that often feels divided, Clara reminds us of our shared humanity, the power of compassion, connection, and community." As he concluded his remarks, Keanu turned to Clara, who stood beside him, visibly moved. "To Clara," he said, raising his hand to signal the audience. "And to everyone here tonight, thank you for proving that love always finds a way." The room erupted into applause once again, but this time, tears streamed down Clara's face. She wasn't crying because of the praise. She was crying because she realized the true impact of her efforts. This wasn't just about her and Henry anymore. It was about inspiring others to believe in themselves and each other. In the weeks that followed, Clara's story continued to resonate globally. Social media buzzed with posts celebrating her achievements, and schools invited her to speak to students about overcoming adversity. During one such visit, a shy girl approached Clara after her talk, holding out a crumpled piece of paper. On it was a drawing of a girl holding a guitar, surrounded by smiling faces. "This is you," the girl whispered. "You helped me believe I can do hard things too." Clara knelt down, giving the child a hug. "And you've reminded me why I keep doing this," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Henry, meanwhile, marveled at the transformation in his granddaughter. Gone was the timid teenager who used to doubt herself. In her place stood a confident young woman determined to leave a positive mark on the world. He often teased her about becoming a celebrity, but beneath the jokes lay immense pride. "She's always had a fire inside her," he told neighbors and friends. "Now the whole world gets to see it." Clara's foundation, which she officially launched shortly after the benefit concert, quickly gained traction. Named Harmony for Hope, it focused on providing financial assistance to families struggling with medical expenses, as well as funding programs that promoted mental health awareness and artistic expression. Donations poured in from across the globe, allowing Clara to expand her reach and impact. She traveled to different cities, organizing workshops and performances that brought communities together. Through it all, she remained humble, attributing her success to the collective effort of everyone involved. One particularly memorable event took place in Los Angeles, where Clara hosted a large-scale fundraiser featuring both established and emerging artists. The highlight of the evening came when Keanu made a surprise appearance, joining Clara on stage for a duet. Together, they performed a rendition of "Lean on Me," their voices blending harmoniously as the audience sang along. It was a magical moment, one that encapsulated the essence of Clara's mission: unity, empathy, and the belief that no one should face life's challenges alone. By the end of the night, donations exceeded expectations, ensuring that Harmony for Hope could continue its work for years to come. As Clara addressed the crowd during the closing remarks, she dedicated the evening to two people: her grandfather, whose love had shaped her into the person she was today, and Keanu, whose quiet generosity had sparked a chain reaction of kindness. "None of this would have been possible without you," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "Thank you for believing in miracles, and for showing me that sometimes they're closer than we think." As the lights dimmed and the crowd dispersed, Clara lingered on stage, taking in the magnitude of what had transpired. What began as a desperate attempt to save her grandfather had blossomed into a movement that touched countless lives. And though the road ahead would undoubtedly present new challenges, Clara faced it with unwavering resolve. After all, she had learned an invaluable lesson: when love leads the way, anything is possible. Years passed, and Clara grew into a woman whose name became synonymous with hope, resilience, and the transformative power of kindness. Her journey from a struggling teenager singing on street corners to a celebrated advocate for change inspired countless others to believe in the possibility of brighter tomorrows. Yet despite her growing fame, Clara remained deeply connected to the values instilled in her by Henry: humility, gratitude, and an unwavering commitment to helping those in need. By her mid-20s, Clara had established herself as not just a musician but also a philanthropist and motivational speaker. Her foundation, Harmony for Hope, flourished under her leadership, expanding its reach to include initiatives that supported education, mental health resources, and access to affordable health care. The organization's annual benefit concerts became highly anticipated events, drawing thousands of attendees eager to contribute to meaningful causes. Artists from around the world volunteered their talents, knowing they were part of something bigger than themselves, a movement rooted in compassion and unity. Henry, now in his late 70s, continued to play a vital role in Clara's life. Though slower and more fragile than before, he remained her guiding light, offering wisdom and encouragement whenever she doubted herself. On quiet evenings, they would still sit together on the porch, strumming guitars and reminiscing about the past. "You've come so far, sweetheart," he'd say, his voice filled with pride. "But don't forget where you started. It keeps you grounded." Clara nodded, cherishing these moments. No matter how much her life changed, she knew that everything she achieved stemmed from her love for him and the sacrifices they had made together. One spring afternoon, as Clara prepared for the launch of a new program aimed at supporting young musicians from underserved communities, she received an unexpected invitation. Keanu Reeves, who had long been a silent supporter of her work, asked if he could attend the event. Over the years, their paths had crossed occasionally, at concerts, charity galas, or chance encounters. But Keanu always maintained a respectful distance, letting Clara shine without overshadowing her accomplishments. This time, however, he wanted to be present for what promised to be a milestone moment. The launch ceremony took place in a grand auditorium adorned with flowers and banners, celebrating creativity and community. Hundreds of people gathered, including local leaders, educators, and aspiring artists eager to learn from Clara's story. As she stepped onto the stage to deliver her opening remarks, the crowd erupted into applause. Dressed in a flowing dress embroidered with musical notes, Clara smiled warmly, scanning the room until her eyes landed on Keanu seated near the front row. Their gazes met briefly, and she felt a surge of gratitude wash over her. "Today is about beginnings," Clara began, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "It's about giving young dreamers the tools they need to turn their passions into purpose. But it's also about acknowledging the people who believed in us when we needed it most." She paused, looking directly at Keanu. "There are moments in life when someone steps in, not because they have to, but because they choose to. That choice changes everything." Keanu shifted slightly in his seat, clearly uncomfortable with the spotlight. But Clara wasn't done. "When my grandpa needed surgery, I thought our story was ending. Instead, it was just beginning, thanks to someone who reminded me that even in the darkest times, there's always light. So today I want to dedicate this program not only to the young artists we're here to support, but also to the man who showed me what true kindness looks like." As the audience turned to look at Keanu, he stood up hesitantly, raising a hand to acknowledge the applause. His face flushed with embarrassment, but there was no mistaking the warmth in his expression. When Clara invited him to join her on stage, he hesitated for a moment before walking up to stand beside her. The two shared a heartfelt embrace, leaving many in the audience wiping away tears. Taking the microphone, Keanu addressed the crowd, his tone humble and sincere. "Clara doesn't need me to tell her how extraordinary she is," he said, his voice resonating through the hall. "She's proven that time and again through her actions. What I will say is this: her story reminds us all of the power of human connection. We may think our efforts are small, but when we act out of love and compassion, those ripples spread farther than we can imagine." His words struck a chord with everyone present, reinforcing the message Clara had been sharing for years. After the ceremony, guests lingered, exchanging stories of their own struggles and triumphs. Young musicians approached Clara, thanking her for creating opportunities they never thought possible. Parents hugged her, expressing gratitude for programs that gave their children a sense of purpose. And strangers introduced themselves, simply wanting to shake her hand and say, "Thank you." In the months that followed, Clara's influence continued to grow. She traveled extensively, spreading her message of hope to audiences worldwide. From rural villages in developing countries to prestigious universities, her performances and speeches left lasting impressions. People often told her that hearing her story made them feel less alone, that it reminded them of their own strength and potential. Back home, Henry watched proudly as Clara's legacy unfolded. Though he rarely accompanied her on trips anymore due to his age, he stayed involved in her work, offering advice and cheering her on from afar. One day, while tending to his garden, he called Clara over to show her something special. Nestled among the roses was a plaque engraved with the words, "Love grows where kindness blooms." It was a gift from Clara, meant to honor the bond they shared and the impact they had made together. As the years went by, Clara ensured that her foundation adapted to meet evolving needs. Programs expanded to address emerging challenges such as climate change, social justice, and technological inequities. Collaborations with global organizations amplified their efforts, proving that even small acts of kindness could spark monumental change. Through it all, Clara remained steadfast in her belief that music, and humanity, had the power to heal wounds and bridge divides. On the 10th anniversary of Harmony for Hope, Clara organized a massive celebration at the same downtown Los Angeles venue where she had once performed as a street artist. Thousands attended, including former beneficiaries of the foundation who had gone on to achieve incredible things. Among them was a young woman named Mia, who had participated in one of Clara's early workshops. Now a successful singer-songwriter, Mia took the stage to perform a tribute song she wrote for Clara, bringing the audience to tears. As the evening drew to a close, Clara delivered a final speech, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. 10 years ago, I sang on these streets hoping someone would listen, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Tonight, I'm surrounded by proof that listening leads to action, and action creates change. None of this would have been possible without the love of my grandfather, the generosity of strangers, and the reminder that even in our darkest hours, miracles are possible. Her words hung in the air as the crowd erupted into applause, standing to honor not just Clara, but the collective spirit of resilience and compassion she represented. Beside her, Keanu smiled quietly, knowing he had played a small part in this extraordinary journey. As the lights dimmed and the music faded, Clara looked out at the sea of faces, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Her story wasn't just hers. It belonged to everyone who had dared to hope, to give, and to believe. And so, the ripple effect of Clara's courage continued, touching lives across generations and reminding the world that even the smallest acts of kindness can create waves of change. For Clara, Henry, and everyone who had walked alongside them, the melody of hope played on, a timeless testament to the enduring power of love.